Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at the new funny book, number 2. And this was published in 1977 by Larry Fuller Enterprises, or Larry Fuller something. And this is kind of has a weird history, this comic. The first issue was just called The Funny Book, and it was basically a fanzine. I think it was all black and white. That was published by this guy, I think Ray Horn, something Horn, and Larry Fuller. Then for the second issue, I don't know what happened to that Horn guy, even though he has a story in here, but he's not the publisher anymore and the editor. So Larry Fuller kind of took over and did this issue. And then there's a third issue, which is totally different. It's like 8.5 by 11, kind of like a prozine. So I don't have either of those two, and I'll probably never will. I doubt I'll find them. They're very small press. They had small press runs. But I do have this issue, and what a way to start off. A beautiful Alex Niño cover. It was really nice. I love Alex Niño. Just he's so imaginative. Just the weird shit he comes up with. It's almost like maybe he was a little schizophrenic or something. I don't think that's true, but his stuff is really unique. Kind of crazy, the purple there. So we have this inside front cover, and this is almost like a little editorial in these word balloons. And this art is by a guy named James Davis, who went on to be in the infamous White Whore Funnies, which Larry Fuller Presents also published. And pretty nice art there. And so we start off the comic with Bob Vochko in Supermarket Blues. Bob Vochko was this interesting guy in cartooning. He never quit his day job. He worked at a grocery store, I think, for 4 decades, his whole adult life. But he would cartoon in the wee hours of the morning on his lunch breaks. And he was all over the place. He was in all these, like, in Comics Buyer's Guide, all these fanzines. He was in, like, I believe Penthouse or Hustler. So, some adult magazine, he contributed cartoons. And a few undergrounds. So he's in this one. And these are basically one-page gag strips about working in a supermarket. And Bob stars in them. And these are just, they're not that good. These are just cutesy little, Sunday funnies type jokes. I think I've seen this guy's art since I was a kid, like in various fanzines. He's just always been around. And I don't know, I kind of like his little cutesy style. I mean, if it would be good for like a daily newspaper strip or, It seems like he's nailed his little cutesy style down. But I never need to see it again. But when I see it, I don't mind it. So here we have the little old man of Choiceberry County. This is a story by Ray Horn. He's the guy who once was the partner in this funny book business concern. And the art is by very young Ken Macklin. And this is some of the earliest stuff I've ever seen by Ken Macklin. We've seen him before in Epic Illustrated. He's in a bunch of issues. Basically, his whole career, he's done this funny animal cartooning. He obviously got way more accomplished if you know his later stuff. But he still definitely has the genesis of his style here. You can totally see those faces are very Ken Macklin. This is a pretty dumb story, pretty bad, and not very well written. It's almost like a little fable. So I guess I don't really need to get into it. But it's very interesting to see young Ken Macklin here. So this guy I love, Gary Figari. He has this comic called The Dolts here. These are some one-page gag strips. They're not that funny. They're kind of usually like old gags. But I love the way he's just totally channeling Basil Wolverton in all his comics. Nobody was drawn like this in the 70s or the 80s or even the 60s, except for Basil Wolverton. But just really funny, great cartooning. This one's kind of interesting, this gag, because it's that old joke about, some guy being so dumb that some guy's trying to sucker him into climbing up a beam of light coming out of a flashlight. And the dumb guy's all like, oh no, I'm not going to fall for that. I'll be halfway up that thing and you'll turn the light off and I'll come plummeting to the earth. And that was used by Alan Moore in The Killing Joke. That was, I believe, the final joke. Some more dolts with their doltish humor. Yeah, these are pretty, old-timey groaners. Some of these jokes, like vaudeville stuff, But I kind of like it. It's just, I love the way he draws these guys. So indebted to Basil Wolverton. But hey, there's no Basil Wolverton. Well, he was still alive around this time, I guess. Oh, maybe he just died. I don't think Basil Wolverton saw the 80s. This next one is called Lorok. And this is kind of like a sword and sorcery parody. Written by Larry Fuller, art by Danny Bulandi, a very young Danny Bulandi, the Filipino cartoonist who around this time came to America to work for DC and then later Marvel. One of the few Filipino artists who seemed to like working on superhero comics. He did hundreds of issues inking of Marvel comics over the years, over the decades. So this is I kind of like this art. It's very, you can see there's little panels here and there or characters that are a little off. Like he's getting there. But for the most part, he's kind of there, especially with his backgrounds. And, the Filipino artists were so good at this stuff. Just being good illustrators, So basically, this is, the shtick of this is that almost all the word balloons, I think all the word balloons, are taken from pop music, either song titles or lyrics. So it's pretty dopey. But it's, the art is actually just illustrating a typical sword and sorcery story. This cool barbarian dude rescues a maiden in distress. And, man, some of these backgrounds are so nice. I think Danny Bulandi was like a teenager back then. He probably wasn't. So that's the shtick. He just crams all these song lyrics in here, pop lyrics. He fooled around and fell in love. Get ready, 'cause here I come. I got to find a way to make you love me too. Look out now, I'm gonna get you. He's really putting a lot on the page. I like it. There's lots of panels on every page, and so the story doesn't really matter. It's just an excuse to do more of these lyrics. This monster pops up as going boom shakalaka, boom shakalaka laga. So very kind of dopey, but also pretty nice Danny Bulandi art. Oh, this is nice. Odd Bodkins by Dan O'Neill. We get 4 pages of this, and this is definitely the standout of the issue. First of all, I mean, we've looked at Dan O'Neill before. I just love his style. Just this classic, great cartooning style. And we see this guy, Hugh. He's fishing in the river. And this guy, Fred, shows up. And he's like, hey, what happened to the bridge? And Hugh admits that he burnt it. And he's like, I wanted to cross the bridge. Why'd you do that? And Hugh says, it's a gesture of solidarity to my generation as they take the great leap backward. And so they basically start this conversation about the bridge being burnt, but really it's like kind of philosophical stuff, you know, how Dan O'Neill likes to do. At the bottom here, we have Odd Bodkins, or is that supposed to be Dan O'Neill himself? He's talking to Mr. Allegory, who looks like an alligator. And he's asking him, what's going on in this comic strip? Like, what does the river represent in this? And Mr. Allegory's just like, I don't know, is it the Sacramento River? So apparently he's not very good at allegory. I mean, like, look at this. It's like George Harriman, you can see in there. And so he was fishing this giant, like, killer whale, shark, or whatever it is. He grabs his hook and steals it. Meanwhile, we see Odd Bodkins. He sees Jesus on a telephone pole, claiming he was double-crossed. And then now down here, the commentary. Mr. Allegory and Odd Bodkins are still talking. If the bridge is technology, the other side of the river must be the future. There's just lots of clever witticisms in here. Dan O'Neill tries to pack as many like punny jokes and just kind of gags in here in the dialogue. So meanwhile, Hugh and Fred are still arguing. Fred is still pissed off that he burned down the bridge. There's this owl in the tree. I think his name's like the bigger hoo-hoo. And he's like an oracle. And he tells them that the man who keeps both feet on the ground will never get his socks off. And they start talking about socks for a while. Here we see like a mini strip, the lesser hoo-hoo oracle at large. Meanwhile, down in the commentary strip in the bottom, Mr. Allegory introduces Odd Bodkins to Irony, who looks like the Tin Man. And once, just like Allegory, he doesn't seem to really grasp what irony is. And Odd Bodkins is getting more and more frustrated because he's not getting any straight answers. So then back to the two birds up here. Well, I guess one's a bird. I don't know. One's a schlump. And Hugh tells him, he says, there's no ignorance, hunger, or disease on the other side of this river. Why would you want to go there? And he's like, because I wanted to. That sounds great. But now I can't because you burned the bridge. And he says, relax, Fred. We can't avoid going there. It's called the grave. So apparently across the river is the afterlife? I don't know. But I don't care. It's just really fun 4 pages. Just a really witty dialogue, witty banter going on. Beautiful cartooning. Good stuff. So now we got more Gary Figari. Lunch and Munch along with Lardo. I think he had Lardo in some other underground comics. This was like his main character. And these are, once again, 1-page gags that are pretty dopey. And but I kind of find him funny. Just because the way he draws. And it's just all this gross humor. Like Lardo is just disgusting. Making all these nasty sandwiches. In this one, Lardo has to go to school to talk to his nephew's teacher. And he falls in love with her. She puts him in the corner with a dunce cap. And he's just mooning over her. The story kind of continues in the next Lardo strip. And it's basically just the humor is Lardo being really dumb. Very old-timey, you know. This could have been a gag strip in the 40s. That plays a Wolverton could have drawn. Next, we have Duel by Reggie Macabasco. And this is one of those strips that I'm sure this guy was like, oh, this is going to be a heavy strip here. We see death. We see two cowboys come out of his eye sockets. They kill each other. They shoot each other in a duel. And then death shows up again and walks away. I don't know. I guess after harvesting their souls. Kind of nice little drawing here. I wouldn't mind seeing more by this guy, but I think this is all he ever did in comics. At least Grand Comics Database thinks so. Not bad. Here we got more Bob Vachko, and once again, this is like, you know, Garfield level humor. A lot of pork. Egad, the Fantastic Hunter, story by Larry Fuller and art by Danny Bulandi. He's using a pen name here, Dan Bold, for some reason. And we see this guy, he's got his manservant, and I guess the manservant gives him this special elixir, and he turns into Egad, the Fantastic Hunter. And this is just pretty dumb. Larry Fuller, not a very good writer at all. And he goes off on a big game safari with his assistant Taru as his tracker. And it turns out they're hunting this giant roach. And they shoot it, but it doesn't kill it. And the roach is chasing after them. They're terrified. And finally, Egad kills the roach and takes a picture with it. This kind of just useless. I don't know. But Danny Bulandi shows that he can kind of draw funny, as well as, you know, like sword and sorcery type. But he's not that good. He's no Alfredo Alcala, that's for sure. Then again, he's very young here, remember. We get another Lardo. Lardo and his gal. I don't know how Lardo scored this sweet girlfriend, but he has. And it's funny because most of the time she's repulsed by him, and the things he does make her gag and retch. But just more goofy jokes. Yeah, this one's a real groaner. Some of these, I'm serious, I'm sure he got out of like old joke books. Some of the gags, they seem like those classic jokes that some guy at a bar would tell you, or at a speakeasy. Real knee slappers. In this one, Lardo goes to this spa and becomes skinny, and his girlfriend's thrilled. Of course, it's only a dream. It's too good to be true. It's weird seeing the thin Lardo. God, the way he draws him, just so repulsive. Basically, hair is coming out of every follicle on his back and shoulders. I would definitely love a Lardo collection. Once again, goofy old joke. And now we have Uncle F by Gary Figari. And once again, just another gag strip about this old farmer who's shit out of luck, but he doesn't seem to care. Another Bob Vachko cartoon Tombstone. And we have a back cover by Edna Jundis, I believe her name is. Let me double check on that. It might be Jurdis. It's Jundis. And she's a Filipino artist. And this is the first time I've ever seen a female Filipino cartoonist. All the many scores of Filipino cartoonists I've been seeing my whole life, ever since I started reading comics. And this is a woman cartoonist. Apparently she was in women's comics, a couple issues of that Underground, and maybe another Underground. So kind of interesting, just for historical interest. And just this very cutesy drawing of these leprechauns. So there you go, guys. The new funny book number 2. And like I said, I'll probably never get the other issues, so I figured I'd just show this one off. Hope you guys like looking at this. Obviously a mixed bag, and but some of the stuff I really like, and I'm glad I picked this up. I just got this a couple months ago at an Underground comic sale at the local comic shop. Well, it was an overall comic sale, but Undergrounds were on sale too. And I think the number 3 with the Nestor Redondo cover, the fancy looking one, I remember seeing that in Bud Plant's catalog my whole childhood and teenage years. It was always on sale. I guess they must have bought like 500 and just over the decades couldn't get rid of them. So they just kept throwing it out there really cheap. I never bought it. And kind of wish I did. It seems like if it's got more Gary Figari in it, I'm in. And the cover looks pretty nice. So hope you guys like looking at this, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.